Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James Kirkland.
Powerful and provocative, prophetic and practical,
Have you ever found yourself?
Are you dating for that person?
informative and
I feel
inspirational.
every bit of that. Like, I'm not trying to waste my
How you gonna do better if you don't know what better looks like? I do.
Intellectual stew.
Come on, let's talk about it with me, the mind massager.
Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James Kirkland. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James Kirkland. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James Kirkland. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James Kirkland. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James Kirkland.
I'm just sharing this with a few people.
Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James Kirkland. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew.
All right. All right, that's enough of that. What's up? I'm trying to share it and let a few people know I'm on because I didn't. This is kind of impromptu, very impromptu. So I'm just trying to share it. If you don't mind, give me a moment. But I want to talk. Yesterday I started a conversation, and we looked geographically at the process, and I think every so often we need to go back. As a pendulum swings, right? The more it swings, the more momentum, it picks up and reaches farther out and all of that. But sometimes hey, what's up, Donnie? Sometimes in the process, we forget about, the beginning, the state, the Genesis stage, right? No building, there's no way you can walk into a building unless it has a real deep basement and just be on the 10th floor. Every building at least has a ground level. And when we look at Christianity and when we look at some of the things that we've learned, I've been doing this. I got baptized when I was 5 years old. I've been in Sunday school literally all my life. So I can't expect people to know what I had to learn. I think would be very unfair of me to expect people to know what I had to learn. And sometimes we expect them to kind of acquiesce or pick it up by osmosis. I don't know what the process is. So I think every now and then it's good to go back to the beginning to bring people along so we can have a foundation to understand where we are. And I think a lot of our beginning starts in the book of Genesis and then makes its way into the book of Exodus. And in the Exodus, we are acquainted with the children of Israel and their journey as they went through the wilderness. They went through the wilderness at the leading of the patriarch Moses. Moses led them through the wilderness. We talked last week, a couple weeks ago, I preached a sermon. What was the name? Oh, yeah, I wasn't hiding, I was hidden. And I talked about how Moses was prepared to lead the people through the wilderness. He had to go through a process of preparation, and much of that preparation, part of it was in Pharaoh's house, but the other part was in the wilderness. And God used the wilderness to prepare him for the wilderness. And they were in the wilderness for 40 years. 40 years, 40 years, 40 years. 40 years is a long time. 40 years is long enough to pick up a mentality. And 400 years they were in Egypt. And trust me, they had a mentality. So yesterday when I did my walk and we talked about these, we talked about the geographical positioning. When they were coming out of the wilderness, there was the wilderness, there was the promised land, but between the promised land and the wilderness was the Jordan River. And I submitted that yesterday, metaphorically and spiritually, prophetically, many of us right now are standing at our Jordan. I really do believe that many of us at this particular juncture in history, I think many of us are standing at our Jordan. We're ready to walk. Some of y'all already made it. I give it to you. God bless you. Let me give you your applause right now. You made it. You on your way to heaven. You enjoying the trip. Let me give you some more applause. Hold on. There you go. There you go. Some of y'all made it. I understand. Y'all on your way to heaven. You enjoying the trip. You don't have any problems. I mean, everything is hunky-dory in your life. If that's your situation, God bless you. But I'm talking to a particular crowd that has been in the wilderness and has adopted a wilderness mentality, right? And has gone through their wilderness, and they're finally on the brink of going into their Jordan. They're right on the cusp of going into their promised land, but they just got to cross. In fact, old folk used to say it like this: I got one more river to cross, and then I'll be in my Jordan. So yesterday I talked about the geographical position of Jordan, right? Of the wilderness and how it's next to Jordan, and you got to cross Jordan to get into the promised land. But today I want to shift that conversation, if y'all will indulge me for a little while. And I appreciate a little conversation. If y'all want to talk back to me, I won't be angry with you. But I want to talk more so about the mindset, because understand this, it's easier to change your location than it is to change your mindset. It's a whole lot easier to change your location. It's easier to change your location than it is to change your mindset or to change your mentality. Because understand, even though when Pharaoh said, let them go, God drowned Pharaoh's army in the river. When they went through, they were physically free, but psychologically, they had been framed by slavery. They were physically free, but psychologically, they had been framed by slavery. Because when you incarcerate a body, you don't only incarcerate the body, you also incarcerate the mind. And what happens is that what happened was they were indoctrinated. They were indoctrinated by Egypt. That's what slavery did to them. They were indoctrinated. Egypt didn't just make them feel like slaves. Egypt made them feel small. And that's usually the case. Think about that. Because the Pharaoh noticed that was his initial problem in the beginning. The problem is that the children of Israel began to outnumber the people of Egypt. And so, because it's always a numbers game, right? The majority rules, right? They're concerned about if they lose the majority, then they lose their power position. They lose their power position, then they lose the power. They lose their authority. They lose the privilege that they have. That's a lot of what's going on in the United States right now. Because they see a certain segment of society that is increasing, that knows how to organize, that knows that can build a strong base. And whenever you see people who have the power to organize, the power to assemble numbers, when you see somebody like that, that's somebody that has to be controlled. That's somebody that has to be struck down. That's somebody that authority wants to, what looks like authority, that's somebody they want to make feel small. So Egypt, as much as it was their desire to make them slaves, it was even more powerful and it was more effective to make them feel small. Egypt taught them several things. Egypt taught them there was obedience without voice. Because what it did was it made them victims. And it lets them know that if they were not obedient, that there would be a consequence to that obedience. So the people, so the children of Israel had to learn survival without vision. They just looked at their circumstances. And looking at their circumstances, it looked like life had overwhelmed them. It looked like life was against them. It looked like the odds, here it is, it looked like the odds were stacked against them. Listen, your circumstances are preached to you long before you don't even have to hear a voice to see the circumstances. I mean, certain things, if you look at your certain circumstances, then certain things just look inevitable. Every day I got the same mundane lifestyle. I wake up, I'm forced to build bricks with no straw. I'm forced to work. If I don't work, there are consequences. 400 years were preached to you if you let it. Because they had been indoctrinated. The Egyptians had indoctrinated. Here it is. Some of us, those listening right now, have been in environments so long, they trained us how to think. Watch this, how to think about ourselves. That's why later on in life, or later on a few more years, when it's time for them, when they could have walked in their promise, U-turn, because when it came time to walk into the promise, God told them to go and assess the land, go and access the land, but they went and assessed the land. And when they got over there, they saw giants, and they said, we were like grasshoppers in their sights, and so we were in our own sights. The enemy wants to make you feel small. They were indoctrinated. They had been indoctrinated by Egypt. But not only were they indoctrinated by Egypt, when you've been enslaved that long, then what you know what that does? It distorts whether or not you feel like you deserve certain things. They were on a pilgrimage, on a passage towards the promised land, something that their forefathers had talked about, something their grandparents talked, something that they had heard about all their lives. They had a leader right now. They had a pillar of cloud by day, pillar of fire by night, had a God that made shoes that grew with their feet. If they said they were hungry, he supplied all their needs. If they said they were thirsty, he would allow water to flow out of a rock. They had a leader. They had everything they needed. But for some reason, they didn't think they deserved it. When they ran into a little opposition, they said, it might be better for us if we had just died in Egypt. At least they got graves. And when you have a slave mentality, when you've been indoctrinated by your circumstances, it will distort you to the point that you don't feel like you deserve. When you've been treated like property, promise feels like theft. Let me say that again. When you have been treated like property, promise feels like theft because you feel like you're getting something that you don't deserve. How many times have you disqualified yourself from receiving a blessing because you didn't think you deserved grace? You thought that what you did was so bad or so unforgivable, or what your family did was so bad, and that your last name is messed up, and that everything is so cursed about you that you don't feel like you've been. Do you realize that that is a mental prison, and that you have become the victim of mental mind cuffs that keep you enslaved, that keep you from dreaming, that keep you from seeing vision, that will keep you always stuck with a negative narrative? Everything you see, I don't see it like, that don't make sense to me. Now that deliver me from people that every time anything that's presented to them, the first thing they see when it comes to that is something negative. I know folk like that. Anything you do, they can do better. Anywhere you've gone, they've already gone there in more places. And those are individuals that are enslaved with competition and comparisоnism and capitalism and all these things that have skewed, they've been indoctrinated and enslaved by society. And when it's been enslaved so long, it distorts their deserving. See, the children of Israel, they struggled with the concept of land they didn't earn. They struggled with the concept that of blessings that they didn't bargain for, or grace that felt unfamiliar. They didn't just doubt the land, they doubted themselves. And I heard Donald Parsons say it like this: when you continue to go with what you know, you always end up where you were. And that's why whenever they would face opposition, their natural response was, let's turn around, let's go back, because it's so much easier to go with the familiar. But when you go with what you know, you always end up where you were. Thank you, Dr. Donald Parsons. Every time. Every time. I was talking yesterday, and I was talking about at this stage of my life, I know typically, what's up, Sister Alcorn? How you doing? Typically at this stage of life, if you investments, you want to be safe. You want to kind of, as less risk as possible, because you're trying to protect, what you've accumulated. But if you haven't accumulated anything now at this point, you probably got to go high risk, right? Because you're looking for a high reward, But in order to do that, you got to be able to give yourself grace, because things will start to shift so fast in your life. When God starts making heavenly deposits, when he starts releasing, y'all, if y'all haven't shared this, share it for me right quick. When God starts releasing supernatural blessings, right? When he starts giving, some of those blessings are going to be blessings that you don't feel like you deserve. And you're going to have to get yourself in a position mentally where you're going to say, you know what? I suffered to this. Notice I didn't say suffer for this, because this is not transactional. This is not conditional. I'm just going through and groaning through life. But in a process of this going and groaning, sometimes God stretches me. And when he stretches me, I also grow in the process. So as I grow, then that's expansion. And as I expand, then I open myself up to receive more blessings. Does that make sense? The more I learn, the more I'm responsible for. Because the more I learn, the more I'm responsible to teach those what I've learned. Does that make sense? The children of Israel, they had a problem receiving land that they didn't work for. So it was so easy. Some of us sabotage good things because deep down we don't believe we're supposed to have them. Let that marinate for a moment. If you're going to get the blessings that God has for you, if you're going to really get the blessings that God has designed and custom made and showed you in visions and showed you in dreams and all these things, these places that you saw yourself going that you couldn't have even imagined, though that was God giving you sneak previews of coming attractions. But in order to receive them, you're going to have to believe you deserve them. Does that make sense? The children of Israel, because they had been indoctrinated, because they had been enslaved, they had slave mentalities, and they thought they deserved slave wages. I love to see people who came from nothing. I love to see people who came from very minuscule backgrounds and then end up really just coming up. I see a lot of these young sisters that came from, projects and from the hood in different places, and they go to esthetician school and go to beauty school and learn how to do hair, and now they're making thousands and thousands of dollars, and they buying nice cars. I mean, driving nice cars, bosses, and doing their thing and getting nice houses and got good credit and all. In order to get those things, you got to feel like, and to function in those things, you got to feel like you deserve those things. Does that make sense? You have to really feel like you deserve those things. I don't know who I'm talking to. I don't know why I'm harping on this point for so long, but I really do believe that there are so many people that have allowed themselves to their mentalities and their minds to be cuffed, to be handcuffed, and it sabotages your thinking. It sabotages you from believing that you deserve the blessings that are available if you're willing to reach up and grab a hold to the blessings that are available to you. But because you have a slave mentality, because you've been enslaved, because for 400 years, somebody whose mentality was, or their purpose was, to make you feel small. That's why a 5'2" mother can control a 6'5" son, because she's put a mentality in him as a youngster that lets him know that I might be 5'2" in stature, but I'm going to always be at least an inch or two taller than you in respect, because it's a mentality. And so many people have been indoctrinated not with the right things, but with the wrong things. People tell you you're going to be sorry just like your daddy. Your daddy was sorry. Your mama was sorry. You're going to just end up pregnant. You just go do that. You heard those things all your life, and it became a wilderness for you. And you wandered in that wilderness. Real talk. I mean, come on, talk to me for a minute. You wandered because somebody put you in captivity, or somebody enslaved you with their words. You found yourself stuck in a wilderness. I don't know why I'm going this route. You found yourself stuck in a wilderness, and you've been there for an extended period of time. And because you were stuck in slavery so long, even in the wilderness, the slave mentality still has you feeling like you're in handcuffs. I don't understand it. But that's why God, thank you, CJ. That's why God, when you're in, that's why God kept them in the wilderness for so long. You do know, you do know that the intention, geographically, because yesterday we talked about geography. Those who missed yesterday, go back and look at yesterday's live. But yesterday we talked about geographically, the span of time, it should have only taken 8 days to make it from Egypt to Canaan. That's all. It should have only taken 8 days. But what took 8 days ended up lasting 40 years, right? Because the wilderness was for deprogramming. God took them out of Egypt, but it didn't take Egypt out of them. See, if he could have took some magical dust and sprinkled it, and he probably could have, because he is God, you know, he's omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent, all those things. He probably could have. But God creates us with these permissive wills, right? Where he wants us to choose. Now, when let me put this caveat out there, Lisa. Once we choose, the will is no longer permissive. Because at that point, we submit our will to his will. Now, I just want to debunk that erroneous theological concept that people run with and use as an excuse to be Epicurean in our attitude. No. When we make a decision to submit, then it's no longer our will, it's his will, right? That's why Jesus said, not my will, but thy will be done. That was free. Okay, but the wilderness, the reason why they were in the wilderness 40 years was because that's how long it took to get the slave mentality off of them. The reason why some of you, let me talk for a moment. The reason why I was, past tense. The reason why some of you were, wherever you are, were in the wilderness so long is because God was trying to take the key, which is his word. He was trying to take the key and unlock the spiritual mind cuffs. See, come here, John. John said, in whom the God of this world have he said that he didn't want I can't think of the scripture right now. He says, why is my mind going blank right now? He talks about how God, he talks about how the enemy wants to put those mind cuffs on us. Find it for me, Lisa, right quick. I think it's First John. I can't remember 4 and 4. I can't remember what it is. I'll find it in a minute. But he talks about how he wants to keep the glorious gospel hid, right? But he doesn't want us to see it. He wants our mind to always be darkened so that if we don't see the light, we'll always be enslaved. We'll always think that only darkness exists. We'll think that we're always supposed to be locked up. And as long as we're supposed to be locked up, but when the light comes in, the light opens up. It instantly dispels darkness and it allows us to dream again. It allows us to see again. It allows us to think on a different order, to think on, to see the things they saw in the wilderness should have been enough. First time I saw water flowing out of a rock, I'd have been like, I'm sold. And all a man got to do because God told him to was speak to a rock, and then all of a sudden water starts flowing out of that rock. I'm sold. I complain about food, and then all of a sudden manna starts falling out of the sky. I'm sold. Yeah. I'm sold. But it was a deprogramming process. Check it out. Manna for them was daily. It equaled daily dependence. Manna equaled daily dependence. Every day, God showed up with manna to meet their need. Not only that, no Pharaoh. This is new now. That means they have new authority. All their lives, all they've seen, or all they've seen as a figure of authority is the Pharaoh. So now there's no Pharaoh, there's new authority. That's why so many people have problems when they come out. That's why the recidivism rate is so high for those who were in prison that come out of prison. Because why is my dog out there barking like that? The recidivism rate is so high because for so many years they've been told when to eat, when to sleep. Oh, y'all give me 1 second. I gotta go check and see what this dog is barking at. Let me make sure nobody at my door. Y'all hold on 1 second. I'm gonna play some music for y'all. Lisa, here you go. You can have it. You want to hear your song? Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. 1 second. I'm gonna pick it right back up. Let me go see what this dog is barking about. All right, here we go. Here we go. Give me.
Intellectual.
All right. All right, sorry about that. She just out there barking. People can't even walk past the door without her saying anything. All right, I'm back. Anybody want a dog? I promise you can have her for free. Y'all can have it. You can have her free. What's going on now? Absolutely what's going on in our lands. No Pharaoh. I'm back. New authority. If y'all haven't shared it, share it for me, please. That means think about it. Somebody's in prison. All they see are the prison guards. They see the warden. Every now and then again, they see a visitor, things of that nature. But in most cases, the prisoners outnumber those in authority by a big number, right? They outnumber them, but because they've been made to feel small and they've been used to certain authority, now they most of the time stay in line, right? Because they've been indoctrinated. So that would have. So when they come out of prison, they have to be deprogrammed. That's why they get in trouble, because they don't know what to do. They've been told when to sleep. They've been told when to eat. They've been told when to work. They've been indoctrinated. But now there's new authority. That's why so many people are comfortable in the secular work environment or the corporate work environment. That's why they're not good when it comes to being entrepreneurs. They're not good stewards of their time, or they're used to a paycheck, or they used to paycheck every 7 days. Not used to maybe not getting paid but once a month or two or three times a year, whatever. It's a new authority. So it keeps them in the wilderness, right? Then now there are no storehouses. For years, Joseph had set up storehouses, but now they have to trust their training. God took away everything that Egypt used to control you. Here you go. What do you do when God takes away everything, and then you realize those were things that were used to control you? Can I give you a secret? One of the things that makes us humans is our abilities to adapt. One of the things that makes us human beings is our ability to adapt. And we really underestimate that. If you really understood the power that you possess, right? I mean, this mind, man, the way if it's used properly, and if it's molded properly, and if it's fed properly, the things that the mind is able to produce when you just take time, but it enables us to function in any and every type of situation. Oh yeah, Lee said I was there recently and I grew and matured greatly. Absolutely. Sometimes God, what he has to do is he has, watch it, this one's good. Sometimes what God has to do is he has to remove structure so he can rebuild identity. Y'all missed that. Sometimes what God has to do is he has to remove structure. The stuff you had gotten used to, because it's so easy. 21 days, man, you can pick up a new habit. It becomes a routine. It's simple. They had done it for 400 years. the same miserable existence. Same thing over and over and over again, over and over and over and over and over and over, 400 years, but you complain about 4 years. You complain about 4 months. You complain about 4. Some of us complain about 4 hours, but for 4 years, they were enslaved. And then all of a sudden, the prison doors are open, wide open, and they say, go. You think the mentality just left? And that's the reason why right now, the greatest transfer in wealth, in the greatest transfer of wealth in history, is right in front of us. The greatest transfer of wealth in history is right in front of us, but so many of us don't have the mentality to receive it. You know why? Because we haven't been deprogrammed. And we had our chance. Real talk. We had we had our chance, man. We really did. We've had some fat years. Even the pandemic, I mean, checks was just being deposited in the bank. Everybody, the mama, the government, everybody, we had our chance. And right now, if you made the right investments over the last few years, I don't know why the Lord lead me this way. All you have to do now is plug in, and the power source is so, I mean, they got phone chargers that don't even take 4 and 5 hours no more. I mean, but you got to plug in properly. But you didn't want to go through the deprogramming process because you thought you had it all together. I get it. I understand. I know. I get it. I understand. I do. But I do also know this. Lisa. I do know this. I know this. That fear was the final symptom, right? But fear, for certain people, the symptoms are different. I could tell my daughter certain things back in the day, and I could tell her certain things. And I would be scolding her, or I would be kind of, y'all call it checking now. I think that's what y'all call it, checking. I would be checking her, and she would kind of laugh. And at first, I looked at it as being disrespectful. Oh, that's funny to you. I'm trying to, even though I wasn't gonna put my hands on my daughter, that's my baby. I would never put my hand. If I put my hands on this, she's gonna think it's okay for a man to put his hands on her, and I can't have that, because if that happens, then I won't be able to stream like this if somebody puts their hands on my baby. So I couldn't set that precedence, right? But every now and then what she would do is she would laugh. And the more mature I became, what I learned was what she was doing was what I call a nervous laughter. It's a nervous laughter. And I think a lot of people just run around here laughing and smiling, and it's a direct response and a reaction to fear. And the fear might be being afraid of never going back to the position where you were. So you work overtime, you do everything in your power to make sure you never go back. And that's a fear as well. Because you got to look a certain way, you got to walk a certain way, you got to talk a certain way, you got to look like the alpha this, or you got to look, and you're really trying to impress people who really don't even care. Does that make sense? So when you're going, so my point is, you can think you're free and think you've reached the promised land and still be in the wilderness because you're a practitioner of self-deception, and you borderline operate in delusion, because truth be told, you're just as enslaved as anybody else. I'm going through it right now. I ain't gonna lie, I'm going through it. This I got, when they talk about one more river to cross, I'm there right now. I'm there. I mean, if you only knew, I'm there right now. But I understand what Grandmama Nim was saying. I might have to hit this one right quick, Lisa. Maybe an A selection. But I understand what Grandmama Nim used to say. What is it that make me feel rich when I don't have a dime? What is it? Because I'm not enslaved. I'm free mentally, right? And see, that's what God will keep you in that wilderness, or not keep you, because you really keep yourself. Let me fix that. God will let you stay in that wilderness as long as you fail to pass the test that he puts before you. And you cannot get a test until you have a testimony. Fear was the final symptom. What is fear? Fear is the indoctrination. Fear is what indoctrination sounds like when opportunity shows up. Fear is what indoctrination sounds like when opportunity shows up. Opportunity says, here I am. And fear says, no, it's not time yet. Fear says, no, I'm not ready yet. Fear begins to compare where we were versus where we are. Look what they said, at least we had graves in Egypt. But you want us out here and leave us, bring us out here to die. You can't go into the promised land with a mentality like that. There's no way. There's no way you can go into. There's no way God can allow you to go into. That's why so many people say stuck in the wilderness. And it's sad when you're stuck in the wilderness and don't even realize. The giants did not create the fear. All the giants did were be giants. You had a choice: grapes, giants. You looked at the giants, forgot about the grapes. God promised you grapes. He didn't say nothing about giants. When he started telling you about the promised land, he talked about the grapes. Wanted you to go get the grapes, but you got over there focused on the giants and missed out on the grapes. Reduced your own self in your own eyes. I could care less what anybody else thinks about me. Because I'm finally comfortable with the man in the mirror. And as long as I'm comfortable with the man in the mirror, it does not amount to a hill of beans what anybody else thinks about me. The giants did not create the fear. You know what the fear was? The fear was already there. The land only exposed the fear that was already there. The fear had been indoctrinated. And the thing I like about God is that God will not allow me to keep going farther when he knows that I'm about to drown. He'll say, you know what? U-turn, go back to the wilderness. Stop. Not time. Turn around. Mount Seir's right there. You didn't get it. You should have picked it up. Go back. And then you end up compassing the same rock 38 more years. And in totality, it'll be 40 years. It took 40 years, what should have only taken 8 days. Because the land exposed. The promise didn't scare them. You know what did? Responsibility did. Because now they're going to be responsible for the vision that they've been entrusted with. Whenever God gives you a vision, he gives it to you on loan. And when he gives it to you on loan, he expects you to take what he has given you to expand it. Let me make sure my computer ain't about to go off. Hold on. He wants you to expand it. That's what he wants you to do. He wants you to take, and he told is occupy .com. So whenever God gives us something, he expects us to take it to the next level. All right. Hold on. Let me fix this. Things are not right today. That's not a show. All right. There we go. I don't want this to cut off on me while I'm talking to y'all. All right. So the promise didn't scare them. Responsibility did. What'd you say? We've been going around for 40 years now versus the Israelites 40 years conformed to their land. Ain't that crazy? 400 years, then 40 years, then we went through 400 years. Wow. Crazy. If all you know is survival, listen. If all you know is survival, freedom feels risky. Do I need to say that again? If all you know is survival, freedom feels risky. But let me tell you, so that's why those 40 years, and that's why you really need to appreciate your time in the wilderness, because sometimes time isn't delay. Time is mercy. What's up, Sharon? Hey, what's up, pretty girl? Sometimes time, it's not delay, it's mercy. Sometimes he's giving you enough time to get it right. Because if he allows you to move too soon, it'll expose you. I talked about that in the sermon I preached. I wasn't hiding. He had to move Moses from Egypt to Midian, because if he didn't, Moses would have exposed himself too soon and he would have died before he got a chance to commit or to complete his assignment. So sometimes God, he'll keep you in the wilderness long enough, because the wilderness, if it's viewed properly if the wilderness is viewed properly with a mature mind, the truth of the matter is the wilderness is nothing but a classroom. Those 40 years in the wilderness, they weren't punishment. They were protection. 40 years in the wilderness, that was not punishment, that was protection. The longest you've been in the wilderness. Now, you could have been out if you took the lesson that was laid before you, because God, life lends lessons. We just got to consider the clues. Those always are happening. But God refuses. Hear me well, so warriors, those who are listening, hear me. God refuses to let slave thinking and fear leadership cross into a promised land. He's not going to do it. He will not. If you have this fear-based leadership and you have the slave mentality, he can't allow you to cross into the promised land, because promised land is a place of purity. It's a different mindset. I'm joining a group now. I'm a part of a different group. And every Tuesday night we have classes, and sometimes these Zoom classes last 3-4 hours, and I'm sitting there and I'm not used to that. But when I first got in this group, they told me point blank, you have to change your mindset. And so every time I find myself falling behind, or I find myself feeling like I'm lacking or something I don't understand, then what I do is I shift the way I think. And sometimes that requires looking at what I'm trying to produce before I really understand the process. Right. And so, I mean, think about it. When you put anything in the GPS, you don't put every point of interest in the GPS. You put the final destination in the GPS. And if you put the final destination in the GPS, then they'll tell you the best route to get there. Sometimes we get caught up in the details so bad that we don't see the destination, and then we end up becoming delayed. That was good. That was fresh. I don't know if I can say it again. Let me see. Sometimes we don't look at the destination. How did I say it the first time? We end up being delayed anyway, whatever it is, because we're looking at we're too caught in. Yeah, we end up becoming delayed because we look at the details too much instead of just looking at the destination. When I'm in this class now, when it's something that I don't understand, or if I get stuck, I look at what I'm trying to produce. And I said, oh, okay, I want the agent to be able to send a robot because it talked to this person and to set up an appointment with the point of contact, and it got the point of contact emails, and all those are nothing but details. But the end result is I need to send the email, and the robot needs to send the email after making a phone call. And if it's after it's extracted this information out of the conversation, and once it extracts this information, then it puts it into. So now it all makes sense because I looked at the destination. That's why so many people, and that's what the devil wants to do. The devil wants to keep us so caught up in the details. Even now, whenever there's something, when we argue on Facebook, trust me, there's something big going on in the world. And most of us are so caught up in the details that we miss what was really going on in the world. They passing laws that are trying to take us out of society, all kinds of things. We so caught up in the details instead of looking at the destination. The destination is to move forward. I talked about that yesterday, Lisa. They could not cross Jordan until somebody was willing to put their feet in the water. And thank God, and God systematically set it up in such a way that he put the priest in the front so the people would look at the priest and do what the priest did. So the priests were providing good leadership. Even when Jehoshaphat went into war, who went in first? The praiser. But we got to change this mind, this mindset. God loved the promise too much to rush broken thinking into it. He loved the promise too much. Instead of just letting somebody, he couldn't just let anybody walk in just to say that it's occupied. Just to say that somebody's living there. If somebody already was living there. The y'all dog got that barking again. And when I go out there and say something to it, and she'll just look at me like, but that's what dog's supposed to do. So I gotta let her slide. He loved the promise too much to rush broken thinking. He had to fix it. He had to get Egypt out of the people before he could let them go into the place of promise. Thank you, man. Here it is. Y'all need to share this with somebody. What feels like delay may be God saving your future from your past. What feels like delay may be God saving your future. I remember one time I made a huge mistake. I wrote about it in the book. If you read it, you probably heard. I probably hinted at it. But when I made that mistake, I just knew I had forfeited my future. I knew I was done. But as vividly as you and I are speaking right now, audibly, I heard the voice of the Lord come to me and say, Kirk. It was like he sat down beside me and put his hand on my shoulder and said, Kirk, you failed before you got up. I shouted on that one. I rested on that one, man. He said, you fail, F-E-L-L, because I did fall. Lord knows I did. I messed up. I messed up bad. But choices have consequences. You know, they do. And some of those consequences have years attached to them. I mean, choices have consequences for them. But even in that moment, the voice of the Lord, because I was connected to him, I heard his voice sharing say, you failed, F-E-L-L, before you got up. So yesterday I talked about standing at your Jordan. That's what I talked about. But before you cross anything, this is the question you have to ask. And you might want to ask yourself this question. Yeah, because I really do believe, I think a lot of us are really on the brink of coming out of our wilderness. I think the wilderness has worked on us and has done its job. And most of us are pretty much deprogrammed. But before you cross Jordan, because you got to cross if you want to go into promise, whatever that metaphorical river is, you got to cross over something that flows one way, that's deep, and has the potential to overwhelm you. But you have everything it takes to cross over because of who you're connected to. But before you cross anything, this is what you have to ask yourself. Has Egypt crossed out of me? And if you can't answer that question unapologetically by saying that the things that I used to do, I don't do no more. The places until you get to the point, place, and posture where you can, I got one right here, where you can look at the scars, notice the scars, recognize the scars, be able to admit that I was scarred. But then you have to be able to say, you know what? It doesn't hurt. I'm over it. Oh yeah, it's there. But I can rub my hand out. This scar right here, I got cut with a razor. They had to use butterfly stitches. She got me. It wasn't my ex-wife, no. For anybody who's trying to assume. But I got a physical scar, literally. And a long time ago, it used to itch, used to pain, it'd be painful, used to have blood, bleed, all those kind of things. But now there is no pain associated with this scar. Egypt is out of me. It is. That's the only way you know. When the thing that used to bother you doesn't bother you anymore. The things that, let me talk to the mental health people, the psychotherapies and all. When the things that used to trigger you no longer serve as triggers, you're healed. Not healing, healed. Healed. You got to stop wearing the wilderness as a badge of suffering. Healed. Got to stop using healing as a crutch. Healed. Because until you are healed, you'll continue to come past the same obstacle, the same rock, and you won't be able to go to Jordan and go forward. Yeah. So that's why the wilderness mattered. It was important. It was imperative that they go through the wilderness. It's imperative that you go through your wilderness. It's imperative. That's it. That's good. That's it, Lisa. Let me put that one on the screen. Healed. Until you get to that place right there. I don't know about y'all, but I'm tired of watching people bleed publicly. Bleeding in plain sight. Nervous laughter. Masking fear. But reality is you're still in your personal wilderness. But remember this, if you walk far enough through the wilderness, on the peripheries, on the border, is a Jordan River. Ain't that crazy? They had to cross the Red Sea to get into the wilderness. But now in order to get out of the wilderness, they got to cross Jordan River. So even God even provides sustenance for you while you're in the wilderness. That's who wouldn't serve a God like that? That's the question for me. Who wouldn't serve a God like that? You needed manna. You were in the wilderness. You needed manna. You needed manna. You needed water. Nope, I got you. Are you not? Oh, you don't like the dark. I get it. Who? Yeah. So I don't know about from the wilderness towards the promised land. And I'm gonna leave out on this one. I'm gonna leave out on this. I want to hear my music one more time. Hopefully, is it gonna play again? But I'm gonna leave out on this note right here. One thing that also had to happen before they went into the wilderness, went through the promised land. God changed leadership. Some people, reality suggests certain people just aren't going to be able to go into the wilderness, into the promised land. Right? All right. I'm good. I didn't mean to be on here an hour, but I've been at exactly 59 minutes and 48 seconds. So how long will it take me to say the world is changing? My question for you is, why do you remain the same? Good night. A good day.